One thing to understand about this phenomenon that I've used the term schizoid position to refer to is that it's more than some kind of a diagnostic entity to classify and consider in an objective way. We need to look at this, as with all mental health, as something relational, something relatable, something human. And that requires that we think about what it really is to be a human being in today's world. Our ancestors, if we go back far enough, they didn't rely on language or discursive thinking in the same way or to the same capacity perhaps that we do just to, pay our cable bills. In a sense, there's been a domestication of the human being, like horses or dogs. And I haven't spent enough time around horses, unfortunately, to say for sure, but my understanding is that if they're raised in a loving way with perhaps their mothers and caring humans around to guide them, to learn how to live in this world of the corral, that it can be a good experience, something healthy and something loving, and something that doesn't conflict with them too much. But if instead you find a child from a pack of wild mustangs and force it to do something unnatural, that's going to be a different way to live in this world with the humans and the horses that have been raised in the corral. And you can have two populations living side by side, one which thinks everything is fine and good and as it should be, and another that's experienced displacement but that's learned it can't show that. There's obviously a parallel here if we're talking about displaced peoples. And the world is full of examples where it's good if you can be successful and learn how to interact in a way that will ensure that, even if that way of being successful is essentially to have to pretend that everything's all right. And it's possible that it might help if you even construct an ego, a sense of self, even if it's sort of fake, that you can inhabit. And that's going to be a conflicted way to live inwardly, because there will be a division. There'll be a part of self that feels like this is not much different from captivity. But it's the only way to survive. If we look at the history of this country, this is the role that many people have had to play, so their children can be raised in such a way where they actually do feel accepted one day, hopefully, or at least not have to know the level of struggle that had been endured to bring them to live in a world where they at least could not have to endure that trauma. So we have a population of humans from any ethnic background that are raised amongst caregivers who themselves are living in that falseness, who haven't been brought up with the kind of loving, caring introduction into this world of the corral, where it can be natural to be a corralled horse, where it can be natural to be a human that's dominated by left hemispheric processes, and perhaps fundamentally disconnected in some ways, but still hopefully retaining a bit of an essence of what it is to be, well, in this metaphor, a horse, or to be a human that still has the capacity for secure attachment, for the communication of affect non-verbally in ways that aren't determined by paranoia. And of course there's a great aloneness, profound aloneness, of those parts of self that have to be shunted. And it's so unbearable that one just stays in the mode of relating to others that's going to help them get by. It's like, in this way, it's better to be a person in a schizoid position than somebody with what we would call a psychotic illness. Perhaps less honest. But is it less honest to be successful in the Jim Crow South for a black family than to be living in abject poverty or incarcerated? It's better to get by, but it's a strain. And it's a strain to be divided. And it's a tremendous strain to be isolated. And to know on some level there's this relationship to others which is fundamentally, rightfully paranoid and deeply afraid, with anger and hurt that are unlikely to be shared with another person in a way that one can begin to heal. And that healing will require processing so many of those feelings. One client said it's like having a crutch for a broken leg. It doesn't heal the broken leg, but it allows you to get by. That's what this adaptation is like. The healing really takes time and understanding and connection. And so in understanding the degree to which this happens for many people, we can start to heal the wounds of psyches that are otherwise going to just go by unnoticed. It's important to know this as people, especially as mental health professionals, and perhaps most of all, as those who've been displaced inwardly, because we can reclaim who we are, but only if we meet the fullness of what's been forgotten inside and through the eyes of another person. And to live with this reality, just as we've learned to begin to speak about the realities of displaced people, so we need this in mental health too.